How's it going, everyone? Hope you're all doing well and you're happy. And if you're not, then maybe this podcast will make you happy, because that's what we set out to do. Make you happy and at the same time enlighten you and give you information that perhaps you didn't know before. Today we have an interesting subject to talk about, and that is cybersecurity. In the news lately, if you pay attention to the news, and if you do, I'm sorry, it's hard to find correct news, but Elon Musk has been in the news lately, had an individual set up an account and create something called a bot that is able to track his private jet's movements. So I inquired about this, and I know nothing of this technology, but I happen to know somebody that does. Happens to be a good friend of mine and is a friend of the show. Blake Thompson is here with us today, ladies and gentlemen. Blake, how are you?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me.
Dude, I really appreciate you coming down.
Absolutely.
Taking your time to talk to little old Just Josh and you. But I really do appreciate it. So the first thing I want to ask you is what in the hell is a bot?
So a bot is a program that's set up to do activities like a normal user would do on the internet. You could set it up to create a tweet. So anytime an event happens, you could create a bot that would create a tweet about a specific thing. So if you were tracking the weather, every day you could script it to go ahead and post what the weather's like, what the weather is going to be in your location on Twitter.
Holy crap. So when you get into certain sites and you're filling out information and it says, I am not a robot, and you type in the different, is that the same thing? Is that what they're trying to figure out?
They're trying to prevent that in a sense. So they'll check to make sure that they'll give you that line of random numbers and letters that's hardly legible. So you can type that in. Normally scripts can go ahead and try and look at that, but it's hard for those scripts to really pin down what those numbers are to put that information in they call it the reCAPTCHA.
And how prominent is this technology getting? Like,
bots are everywhere. They're doing tons of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of good ones there, and there's some that are out there to do malicious things.
Man, it's crazy because we hear more and more about it. I mean, especially with like the elections last time, and foreign governments being able to infiltrate our system and our network and the framework, whatever the hell they say. I don't know what any of that means, but it's kind of from a consumer standpoint, it's kind of scary. Like, is there anything that we can do to protect ourselves?
One thing you can do is always just make sure what you do put out on the internet is what you intend to put out there. Don't give more information than you need to. A lot of people, for example, they'll go on a trip, and while they're on a trip, they will post things about their trip on their vacation. What somebody that's looking to do malicious things can do is they can notice, okay, this person's out of town, and they can go to their house and know, hey, they're in Florida right now. So they can go to their house and rob it. It would give them the knowledge that, hey, they're not at home right now. So it's fair game.
And you're doing this for a living. What is your current position? What are you doing?
So I am an IT security engineer, and basically what I do is I help to ensure that data that's not intended to be public is not leaked. That people that intend to do malicious things to the corporation that I work for, they're not able to get in and deface websites, spread misinformation, or destroy systems.
Have you heard about this Elon situation?
Yeah, that's it's definitely interesting. The kid decided that he would script a bot to scrape information from the ADS-B system, which is the automatic dependent surveillance broadcast. What this system does is it feeds pilots information like weather, where they're at, so their location, wind speed, stuff like that. It feeds that information to the pilots so they know where everybody else is at. It's also given to the air traffic controllers to help guide the planes where they need to go, the direction that they need to travel, if there's another plane coming in their direction that they need to avoid.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Elon publicly, I mean, it obviously ended up going public, but Elon contacted this individual, was pretty polite about it, it seemed, and said, hey, I'll pay you this much money to knock this off. And the individual thought that it was worth a lot more than that, and enjoys what he's doing. But you know, from someone coming from Elon's standpoint, who's obviously a public figure, extremely wealthy, and is doing a lot of important things, it's a risk factor there. If you were working on Elon's team, what could you give him any direction on what? I mean, Elon's one of the smartest people in the world. So in my mind's eye, correct me if I'm wrong, I would think if they had a way of solving this problem, they could do it without even talking to this individual. But the very fact that he reached out makes me think that they don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation. I know that like the military and whatnot, they have the ability to switch this information off, so they can go dark. They don't broadcast their information and compromise their location.
Their loadouts, like the president and Air Force One.
Yeah. So, but with commercial aircraft and with people flying, I don't know if that's an option. I'm not a pilot. I wouldn't know all the regulations based on that.
Is there anything electronically? I mean, I guess not, because this isn't something that they're not going into anything specifically that he has. This is just information that's pretty much available.
Yeah.
Anywhere, anytime, anyway, right?
From the way I understand it, yeah, absolutely.
The difference is he's taking it and then broadcasting it, so
absolutely.
People know where he's going.
So, and what the guy is doing in cybersecurity, it's actually a common practice, believe it or not. So, oftentimes, security researchers they will look to do what they call a bug bounty. Okay, so they will look to find flaws in code or in applications, and then they will submit this to the company, and the company oftentimes will pay them. And oftentimes with these bug bounties, they are getting $50,000. They are getting $100,000. Sometimes they're getting $250,000, depending on what the bug is. There's good money in it.
Isn't that the same as blackmail in a way? Like,
not necessarily. Sometimes it's often cheaper for the companies in a sense, because they can avoid a data breach. Also, maybe they don't have enough money to pay for the security in their corporation.
Sure.
So it might be cheaper just to pay these one-off bug bounties rather than have full-time staff in their company.
Okay. That's crazy. Like, it's nuts, because I can obviously tell that he's worried about it. And from a broader standpoint, like if you wanted to track a person and you wanted to know where a person was, how easy is that to formulate?
So back to bots. I mean, if you compromise somebody's phone, they can send out that GPS information. There's an application out there. It's called Pushpin. What this application does is I can actually take a geographic location and it'll tap into all social media. You do have to connect it to those social media platforms, but what it'll actually do is it'll take it and you can actually pick a geographic location. It will show you all the posts in that location. So for example, if there's a sports bar or a club that you know the geographic location of, you can actually put that geographic location in this tool and it will display all the posts that were sent out from that location.
Holy crap. Is there anything we can do to protect ourselves from that?
Yeah, just make sure you understand what information you're giving out, what you're posting, where you're posting. Just kind of come to an understanding that once you put this out on the internet, you can't get it back.
I always hear advertised these commercials for VPNs. I have one. Does that help at all?
Let me ask you a question. What is your understanding of what a VPN does?
Well, just what they say on the advertisement, that as you connect to different Wi-Fi points, once you're connected, your account or your phone isn't on a secured network.
Okay. Because
it's free Wi-Fi. So anyone that connects, whoever manages that connection, has free reign to the information of who's ever connected. Is that?
Yeah, to a certain
correct?
extent. So, for example, I don't use a VPN all the time. Most often, it's when I'm in a hotel.
Looking at porn?
No. If that's what you like, then yeah.
Sorry.
Definitely. I mean, whatever floats your boat, you know.
Whatever works out.
So, a lot of times in hotels, you're connected to internet that just basically anybody has access to.
Right.
Problem with that is oftentimes, I mean, if you're on the same network, it's easy to what we call sniff that traffic or
what was that terminology?
Sniff
that traffic?
Yeah. So
all right. I like this lingo. I'm going to start memorizing it. We've been sniffing your traffic, ma'am, and we think there's a problem.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So basically what they do is they intercept that traffic.
Okay.
And if it's not properly, I mean, it could be clear text. They could route the traffic so it is clear text. So basically they could see passwords, they could see sensitive information. Maybe if you're trying to log into a bank account and they were able to reroute your traffic a certain way through what we call a proxy, which is a system that will take your information and it will make the request to the bank for you.
Holy cow.
They could actually see your login information. So the best thing to do would be to connect to a VPN. What that will do is it basically scrambles that information and makes it illegible unless you have the keys to decrypt that information.
What's the level of difficulty to do something like that? Like, is this something that you'd have to go to college to understand? Or, I mean, like, how hard is it to do something?
To intercept traffic?
Yeah.
There's YouTube videos on it.
Oh
you could go to YouTube and you can figure that out. I mean, it's not difficult. There are pre-made tools to do it.
You obviously know how to write code.
Somewhat.
I mean, because that's not, I mean, your primary thing isn't necessarily the coding itself. It's the...
No, I analyze traffic. I analyze what we call logs, which is every system produces these logs, which basically, for example, if a user is sitting on a computer, they open it up and they log in, that computer is going to say, this user logged in at this time. This person created this document. This user created this document at this time. It'll basically write that information down. And we can actually take that information and send it to another system that we can then search that information for valuable data. And
what are you able to see when someone, like, for instance, if I go on a website and I'm doing whatever I'm doing, downloading something or entering something, and my connection is there, can they go through and backtrack and find out like location information and... Man alive. So
location information is somewhat difficult. I mean, they do have, they can get the general location, but like down to your actual location, that's a little bit more compromising. A cell phone that has GPS data and extracting that. But just from the IP address, I mean, you can get a general area. Like you can get that. I mean, if you need to take legal action, obviously you can go to the internet service provider with a court order and get that information of who was using that internet at that time.
Dude, you're like the digital mafia. You realize that? Like, I'm starting to put two and two together. I need to make sure I'm up on Christmas and birthday gifts for you. Because if you were a douche, you could really cause some major problems for somebody.
Yeah, but I don't want to run that risk of losing everything that I've learned, because I want everybody to be able to get a job. If I do something bad, I lose all the credentials that I have.
Sure. But the knowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's what's so crazy. And you don't have to go into the details, but like if you did want to be malicious, how hard would it be for you to emulate some of these things that have been going on and do it yourself?
Not too difficult.
Man alive. It's just crazy.
There's a lot of information on the internet of how to do that too. So, I mean, it's, yeah.
So this threat of cybersecurity that we're always hearing about from the government, do you think it's as serious as they make it out to be?
Absolutely.
Do you think we're as vulnerable as they make us out to be?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm sure that they're just trying constantly all the time to find ways to thwart that kind of attack or that kind of, there's speculation out there. And now I know we're kind of getting into weird territory here, but for all of the conspiracy theorists, and maybe it's not a conspiracy, maybe it's something that could actually happen, but it's been said that with all of these internet threats and everything that's happening to our framework, that they could shut down the power grid and go through and eradicate those threats and beef up the framework and then kick it back on. Does that sound reasonable?
It could be. I mean, unless you're replacing the system itself, a lot of times, like for example, your home router, occasionally those get compromised, and I think it was not too long ago that the FBI asked everybody to reboot their routers all at one time because they were suspecting that there was a country monitoring traffic and that they were in a lot of the home routers and whatnot.
Yeah, missed that memo.
And basically rebooting those didn't actually clear out the malware, but what it did is oftentimes when something's compromised, the moment you turn it on, it will reach out to a server or to the malicious actor to pull down instructions or to say, hey, I'm online. I'm back on.
Oh, okay. And that's how they...
So what happened with those rebooting, and some of them might have been automated by the internet service providers. They can reboot that remotely. And so what they would do is they would reboot that all, and then they would see where all the traffic goes after that.
So if you were sitting outside someone's house and you were able to connect to their router, what information could you pull off from there?
It would take some setting up, but you could, you could pretty much do anything you wanted.
So what can we do to secure our, okay, obviously you have a house, right?
Yeah.
with a router. What knowing what you know, what do you do to secure your information?
So definitely passwords above 15 characters. I mean, you don't have to make it super, super complex. I mean, for a password to be secure, length is better. Okay. Length is way better than complexity. So oftentimes you'll see people with the exclamation point, the @ symbol, and they'll put all that, which it's good. I mean, if you can do length with those characters in them, it's better that way. But I mean, there's some examples of like picking like 4 words that are unrelated, and just using those 4 words as a password. So like horseshoe, staple, baseball bat, you could use that as a password.
A lot of the fields, though, nowadays make you do like a capital, and they have you do all of this weird stuff.
Yeah.
Before you can even do that. I mean, I think my password's bad A. I'm not going to tell it to you on air, but I'll tell it off the podcast. I think it's pretty strong, but I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I'm hoping that people listening can come away better knowing how to protect themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
So we've covered the VPN kind of. I mean, we never really resolved I don't think we resolved the end game on the VPN. So all that's going to protect you basically is if you're like at a McDonald's and you're connecting to their network.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It protects your information. A lot of people use a VPN, like people that pirate movies and stuff like that, because you'll oftentimes get, like, if you just go through like Comcast and you're using some sort of service to download videos or pirate movies and stuff like that, you'll get those DMCA notices, the digital media rights notifications saying, hey, you need to stop or you're going to get sued. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll create that VPN tunnel so the ISP, the internet service provider, cannot see what you are doing, and they'll dump their traffic in another country, for example. So
how many companies are getting hacked that we don't know about?
No.
I mean, you just said like the whole, hey, we break it. God, it almost sounds like, have you ever seen the movie Sneakers?
Oh, absolutely.
With Robert Redford?
Yeah.
This is like the digital version of that.
Yeah.
Because they would go break. Anyone that hasn't seen Sneakers got Robert Redford in it. It's freaking. Oh, Dan Aykroyd's in there too. I can't remember who the other.
Good movie.
Great movie.
Really good movie.
Love that movie. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
And it's probably one of the more realistic hacker movies.
No, because they did. That's what they did. They broke into places and then would go back and go, this is where your weaknesses are.
And those are called penetration testers.
Penetration testers.
So there's
sounds like a condom company.
Yeah, exactly. But those, so they call them physical penetration testers, the ones that'll actually go to the location, break into the companies, and see what they can find.
Okay.
I had one for a company that I worked for where they actually found a password into the computer system just laying on a desk after they broke into the office. So they were able to break into the office, find the password, and then they were able to get on all the network because somebody left that password on a sticky note.
And if you remember in that movie, the whole thing was his buddy found a chip that they created that could go in and debug everyone's passwords to find out what the passwords were, right?
Yep.
So now in today's world, how real is that?
Passwords get dumped all the time.
Okay.
All the time. So companies will get compromised. They'll find their user databases and they'll use that information, because one of the things that people do often is they'll reuse their passwords. Okay.
Sure.
So a company, for example, I know my Fitness Pal got compromised not too long ago. That was a couple of years ago. But several different websites, Ashley Madison, they'll take those passwords and they'll take that the email and password, and they'll find other websites that use that email and try to log in with that password. And oftentimes people reuse those passwords, and so they're able to get into those other sites and get that other information from those sites.
Wow. You just don't. Maybe it's just not broadcast, but you just don't hear about that, happening day to day. But it obviously is something that...
Being in the field, I hear it every day.
Constantly,
yeah,
right.
Constantly. It's like the sky's falling every day.
Every day. It's always an emergency. Well, and we haven't divulged who you work for, so I can ask you this. How often do you see people trying to break into your infrastructure?
Trying to break in, it's happening every second.
Every second?
Yeah. So they've got, people are scanning the entire webs like all the time. It's always being scanned. So if you were to set a website out on the internet and monitor the logs, the moment you set that out there, people will try to break into it.
So is there a point where it just gets so oversaturated that it's not even worth getting on the internet anymore?
No, I mean, proper security. I mean, they're trying, they're not successful. So people successfully getting in, that's not very often. I mean,
but that's not the point. The point is you've always got someone knocking on the door.
Always. The thing is it's just like with robbers. So if you're in a bad area, you're open to the robbers in that area. People that are looking to steal stuff in that neighborhood, it's just usually the people there that are looking to steal stuff. With the internet, you have to realize that the robbers of the entire world are brought to your front door through the internet.
That is so crazy. That is so crazy. So people like now going back to Elon, they're kind of at the mercy of this technology until either a law or something. I mean, I don't understand why air traffic control would have to be public information.
That I'm not sure. I don't know why he's able to get to that information. I don't know why it's not just restricted to pilots and air traffic control people. But even at that, somebody with that information could obviously abuse that.
And I'm not a pilot either, but I do remember asking a pilot something about the tel number, and it's almost impossible to get your tel number changed once you have a tel number, because that tel number is associated with the maintenance of that airplane. And for personal airplanes, I'm speaking, not mostly commercial, but after a certain amount of hours, you have to go and have that whole engine rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's an expensive game.
Absolutely.
So passwords, that's the main thing that you can do to keep yourself secure. Do you have any other suggestions?
I would say just be careful what internet you're connecting to. For example, if I wanted to, like, say you connect to, say you're at a Marriott hotel, okay? And the Marriott hotel, their SSID, which is basically the network name that you give to your network. So if you're at home, it's that little password that or it's that name that you give to that to your Wi-Fi network.
So what's the difference between that and an IP address?
So an IP address is like the address to your specific computer. It's how traffic's directed to your computer. And
that never changes? Your IP address stays the same?
It depends on what we're talking. If it's manually set, no, it won't change. But it'll be different from network to network.
But my cell phone has an IP address.
Yes.
And that doesn't change.
It depends on what you're on. I mean, if you're connected to your home Wi-Fi, you will have an IP address that is assigned from your home router. I don't know how the cell companies works.
Okay.
I'm assuming they use IPv6, which is going to be a longer IP address. That may or may not change. I'm not sure how that all functions. I haven't gotten into cell phones too much.
So what about companies like LifeLock?
So basically they scour the internet and what they call the dark web, so the internet that you see is about 2% of the internet. Google has about 2% of the internet categorized and cataloged, and that's what you see. The dark web is all the systems out there in the world that are basically on the internet. A lot of them you don't see unless you use something like Tor, which is it's a browser to get into that what they call the dark web or the deep web or whatever.
I haven't even heard of this. There's a dark web?
Yeah.
Is that like the same thing as the upside down world? Like, what do you do on the dark web?
So people will trade information that's People have sold drugs. People have, I mean, there's just basically anything imaginable out there.
Holy crap. That's crazy. So we only see 2%?
Yeah. You don't see very much of the internet. So
there's a huge problem there.
Mm-hmm. So, and the FBI, I mean, they traffic that, and they find bad there, and they try to eliminate it and whatnot. But you might be able to find some bank's server sitting on the internet. You might be able to find it.
Have you been on the dark web?
A little bit. I haven't messed around with it too much, but yeah.
And what does that look like?
It's a little bit more complicated. I mean, it's kind of like back in the early to late 90s, where their old websites, it's constantly rotating. There are some services that try to keep track of where stuff is at, and they're constantly changing. Everything's in motion. Stuff goes up and disappears all the time, and stuff gets set up all the time. It's kind of a big circus. So,
man, that is freaking crazy. Like, I had no idea. The dark web.
Mm-hmm.
And so with all of that going on, like, okay, let me ask you this. Who the hell controls the internet?
So the government, the U.S. government, basically has the infrastructure and whatnot, and then they leave it open to everybody at that point. But there's services that you have to pay to own certain IP ranges on the public internet. To get like the name google.com, to get that domain name, they have to pay a certain amount to a government organization to own that domain. So nobody else can have that domain except for that company.
So how often do you think Google gets hacked into?
That's tough. I know they have one of the biggest and most robust security teams in the world for a private organization.
You'd have to.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, with all of that going on and now learning there's a dark web, maybe I've been sitting in a cave somewhere, but I mean, that's pretty freaky.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty freaking freaky.
Yeah. There was a guy, on the dark web, there was a whole site set up for illegal activities, for drugs, for hip for hire and stuff like that.
Holy cow. Wow. Did you know about the dark web before you got into this?
Some movies and stuff kind of
allude to it,
and people post like after somebody hacked into a company, gathered up their whole user information database, and they used that for their gain. Like they logged into all the other websites and whatnot. They oftentimes they just dump that on the dark web and just say, "Hey, look what I did." And
can you view videos on the dark web?
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
Man alive. Is there like a YouTube version of the dark web?
I'm not sure about that. I haven't really looked into that.
When you got into this industry, what was the eye-opener for you that shocked you the most? And it doesn't have to be one specific thing. Maybe there were several things. But when you started getting educated in this field, what just blew your freaking mind?
So I think the biggest mind blow for me was there's this website called Shodan.io. And just like those bots we were speaking about earlier, they are constantly scanning the internet. And part of that, they will show up home routers with default configurations. So the password's admin. So they will show you actually where you could actually log into somebody's home router because they left it default. And cameras.
Oh, okay.
Laptop cameras. They will actually have live video feeds on that site of people that have their laptop cameras compromised. And they'll be streaming that.
Man alive. It makes you feel naked.
Yeah.
In a way.
That's why a lot of people have those camera covers. But the newer laptops, I've heard that they actually have it physically wired. So when that camera comes on, that light actually has to come on. Whereas in the past, it wasn't physically wired that way, so you could have the camera going without that light on.
Well, you've seen it in movies where it's like a spy movie or something. They're like, we're going to hack into their phone and activate their camera and sound to see what's going on. Like, is that stuff?
Oh, there's no doubt it could be done. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to get rid of everything. I'm going back to the Stone Ages, man. Going back to the farm.
Well, if you're going to do that, you have to get rid of everything.
Everything, right? Because everything that we do nowadays leaves a digital fingerprint.
So a speaker, okay? I think if they reverse the polarity or something like that, they can actually turn it into a microphone. So anything with a speaker.
Just have a speaker.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean, it almost does kind of make you feel helpless. Like, I mean, and that's the best we can do is just come up with some beefy passwords and just hope that we don't get singled out. But once they're able to connect into something like a router, I mean, all of your bills that you pay, all of the, I'm sure, I log on to my bank account all the time.
They would have to route your traffic and whatnot, and then decrypt the traffic, basically. So they would have to set up a proxy within your house to capture that information. But
it is like the freaking Matrix, though. Essentially, I mean, that's kind of what that is. Like all of Bitcoin is for the most part digital.
Yes.
So how is that not manipulated?
It gets stolen all the time. I mean, cryptocurrency is stolen frequently. I mean, I've heard 3 or 4 different breaches not too long ago where millions of dollars got taken out.
And is there any recourse?
Of a Bitcoin exchange. Oftentimes with crypto, there isn't.
Well, no, because crypto's not FDIC insured, right? Yeah. But even our banks only insure our money, up to $250,000
per account, I think. Yeah, something like that.
I mean, that's ridiculous. You'd think that if you're going to put a substantial amount of money in the bank, you'd get a little more reassurance than that.
Yeah.
How often do you think this stuff happens with the banks? Because, I mean, that's where all of our account numbers and login information is stored. So you think,
from what I heard, I mean, I've worked with a couple of people that have worked at banks, and it happens pretty often. I mean, they've got a pretty robust fraud team to deal with fraud and other stuff.
And our world is moving more and more digital all the time. I really think there's going to be a time that everything is digital. I mean, even with
toasters nowadays, they're Wi-Fi enabled. I mean,
you
got smart toasters.
My smoker, I can sit upstairs and tell it what temperature to run. Like, it's crazy how everything's changing. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's convenient.
I know Neuralink is working on computer chips that go right into your brain. And other people are like, oh, absolutely not. Dude, sign me up for that. I think that would be so freaking cool.
No, not for me.
Hey, but you know what, though? Think about how many people said that about what we've got already.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Like the older generation, I'll never walk around with one of those phones.
Well, I mean, there's that funny meme out there that... So it's like back in the 60s, the lady's like, yeah, be careful. They're wiretapping the phones and this and that. And then the other side of the meme, it says, hey, wiretap, what's a recipe for pancakes? Talking to Alexa. I mean.
Well, and you brought up a good thing. I mean, Google, Alexa, all of these platforms that have open-ended mics, so they can listen to the name being called and it's activated. I mean, they've admitted that they're listening all the time, not maybe a specific person, but all of that stuff
they save like this 60 seconds or something.
Yeah.
A rolling 60 seconds. So they're always saving 60 seconds just so it can be analyzed and make sure that they're responding to commands.
Did you ever see the podcast where the CEO of Twitter went on with Joe Rogan, and they were talking to her about all of the data and everything that they save and everything? If you haven't, you need to check that out.
I haven't seen that. No.
It was so cool. It was so awesome. You have to listen to that because it kind of deals with a lot about with what we're talking about here, the digital side of things and security and what they have control over and what they don't have control over. And these privatized companies now can basically make up their own rules and do what they want.
And if not, they pay enough money to change the rules.
Yeah. Or if they don't like what you say, they just delete your account.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is a huge thing lately. And I know that doesn't have anything to do with cybersecurity, but it's still scary.
Oh, yeah.
But hey, man, I really appreciate you stopping by.
No problem.
And giving me your time and talk to me about this. I think it is troublesome to hear about all of that. And it's hard not to walk away and be kind of freaked out. But I guess what you take away from it is if you do your part and your due diligence to make sure that your stuff is secure and you have the passwords that are appropriately, intricate, so it's not as easy to get into those things, you can better protect yourself that way.
Yeah. And separate passwords for each account, because
so every account, make sure you have a different password. Yes. Don't use the same password for everything. And then you can't turn around and save the passwords on your phone.
I would use a password manager for that.
Perfect. And then
LastPass or 1Password.
I think I've got one called Samsung Pass, and it automatically saves my information. I have to use my fingerprint for it to activate.
Yeah.
But is it something like that?
Yeah. Something like that to store your passwords. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you can tell everyone before we go? Anything that could help people to be more secure?
No, I think that's about it.
You covered it?
Yeah.
Sweet. Hell yeah. Well, you're awesome, dude. And you're a great bud, and I appreciate you coming on. Everyone, if you're still listening, you freaking rock. Make sure that you share, like, subscribe, hit the button, because we want more people to listen to us so we can have more listeners, and I can justify doing this and sharing more information. So you've been listening to the Just Josh and You program. We're here to say peace be unto you, and we hope that you have a great day, and we'll catch you on the flip side.